Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. JC here with another video on Action Taimanin. Today we're going to talk about how you should be farming the item drops from VR. But before we start, don't forget to leave a like, share and subscribe if you enjoy the content. So, I have mentioned this before, but now that we have 5 VR bosses and probably in the future we'll have 6 VR bosses, it's important to know when you want to farm the different items available as drops. So for that, we first need to analyze which are the VR bosses. We have Taimanin, which is going to be probably the easiest one to farm. She has critical rate resistance on her first form when she has the code, and then on the second form she's going to summon clones as well as a Fuma Shuriken, and she's gonna deal a lot of damage. She's weak to slow, and she's also weak to mind control. Mind control is gonna be the strategy that most people use, is probably the easiest one, but you also need a limited holiday supporter in the form of Witch-Su, which will probably come on October. So for the newer players, start saving so that you can actually abuse these strategies. So we have Oboro. We also have the LWS squad. The LWS squad is going to be 3 machines which are going to overwhelm your team along with some mobs. They have various attack patterns, and the most important trait they have is that they are immune to slow. So you cannot use the slow strategy, but they are weak to snare as well as mind control. So you can use any of those strategies to beat them. Though they are not that difficult anymore, thanks to the wide variety of effects that we have in the game. They definitely are a little bit more annoying to farm since there are 3 of them, and also the mobs. So I do not recommend that you try to farm them for items. There's better bosses to farm for items. Then we have Queen Arachne. Queen Arachne is going to have 3 phases, and she is going to be able to inflict slow and bleed with her attacks. She also has mobs, and she has the debuff. Her debuffs are gonna be the debuffs inflicted to her are gonna be reduced on their duration. So even if you use mind control, she's gonna get out of it pretty quickly. Yes, you can do perma strats for debuffs. Yeah, it's true. She is weak to any of those debuffs. She's more vulnerable to slow and mind control than she is to snare. So if you want to use one of those strategies, it's perfectly fine. It's just a little bit more RNG than other bosses. Then we have Queen Kanaloa. Queen Kanaloa is going to be a very difficult boss. She has minions who inflict debuffs onto your team, and the minions are going to have immunity to one side of the spectrum, to either melee or range attacks. And Queen Kanaloa, after some time, is going to acquire that quality too. She's going to be immune to one of those kinds of attacks, depending on how much damage you dealt to her with either range or melee attacks. If most of your damage was range, she's gonna get range immunity. So the same can be said about melee. This one, it is also very easy to farm actually, with a good strategy. But if things get out of hand and she acquires that immunity, she isn't the most difficult thing to deal with, but she's gonna take some time before you can actually deal damage against. So it is not as comfortable to farm as other bosses due to RNG. Lastly, we have Wyrm Knight. Wyrm Knight is probably the most difficult boss that we have faced so far. She has three, well, technically two phases, but we can divide the battle in three parts. First, you have to fight Ingrid, which is not special at all. Then you have to fight Ingrid and Lina. And while Lina is alive, Ingrid is going to be immune to debuffs, which means you cannot use the mind control, slow, or any other kind of debuff strategy. When Lina dies, she becomes vulnerable to debuffs, and you can just abuse whichever debuff you like. Uh, she's going to have a big stage, she's going to have big range, yes, big AoEs, because she's gonna summon fire pits, usually on the character that you're piloting, but she can also summon them on other characters, and this makes it difficult to position yourself on the stage if you don't place the fire pits properly, which is perfectly fine in my opinion. She also has a lot of invincibility frames, which make it hard to stop her. Even if you beat Lina, if you're not using either mind control or White Theraska to break the super armor, she's going to be very annoying. So, which boss should you farm? Basically, if you want to farm for item drops, you want to be facing Taimanin. She is the easiest one. Yes, you can farm everywhere on any boss. If you are strong enough, if you have the right equipment, if you have a good strategy. But Taimanin is just the easiest one because she was the first one. So I'm going to show you. Another thing, if there is HP restoration campaign, that's way better. That's another reason why you want to farm. Farming for items means farming even after getting all your points. As you can see, I'm about to get all my points, and I don't care about them. I care about using my BP to get items that are kind of difficult. There's two approaches that you can do. I have been talking about the hardest of both approaches. So you can either farm on a step 100, or you can farm on a very low step, like step 21, 10, even 1, because there's benefits to it. If you see here, I have an 84% chance to get coins, a 2% chance to get items, and the rest is going to be a chance to get any of the other items, the hammers, the beads, the loop, the Magatamas, and the Crystal Mirage. Sorry. So, which should you farm? Step 1 or step 100? If you want to farm for beads, for loops, for crystal fragments, probably it's better to just farm on step 1. You have higher chances to get those items. Yes, you have more chances to get VR coins. Kind of, it's let's say 1 out of 5 you're gonna be able to get one of those 3 items. But if you progress and you go up to 100, you want to go to 100 because over 100 you're not gonna get any of the other you're not going to increase the percentages. Look, 75.8 and 100 is 75.08 technically. So yeah, the numbers won't change after 100. So here you have a 1% chance to get Crystal Mirage, a 1.24% chance to get both UR Magatamas or hammers, and the other items do not change. It's still the same 2%, it's still the same 10%, the same 2%. So you in this one you have a chance of 1 out of 4 to get an item, which is pretty good. So, depending on what item you want to farm, you can farm on a lower step or on a higher step. You don't have to reach 100, of course. You can farm whatever you're comfortable farming. But if you have Oboro and you have kind of enough stats and bit sticks to do this, it's gonna be fine. And you do need, with this strategy, Little Witch 2, preferably 2 copies. So let's check quickly how I'm going to farm. Like, perhaps we don't need to analyze everything. You just need powerful beat sticks as weapon. The same can be said about Magatamas. Obviously, I do have perfect Magatamas. And yes, having a speed increase, elements that give you speed increase, either water or wind, is going to be helpful. Preferably water for this strategy, just so that you know. Then, for Momochinagi, the skills are important. Mirage Strike, super important. Moonshade, super important. And Storm Dance is just... it synergizes with the strategy, and it's going to help you in case things go south in some way. So, all of these are going to have a good amount of multi-hits. And we want those multi-hits because we're using Little Witch 2, which is going to give us a chance to extend the duration of debuffs with melee attacks. We also have any supporters that increase your damage. I mean, here I have a limited, but you can change it for whatever that gives you more damage. It really doesn't matter. That's why I'm not checking the weapons and the supporters. Only Witch 2 is what matters. The skills. And yeah, that's it. Let's also check Shisui. Oops, sorry. Shisui, as you can see, is going to be here so that I can auto farm. And I'm going to talk about the auto farming on step 100. There's a couple things you want to do. So, I have whatever weapons. This one is 4 out of 5, so it's not even that great. It could be better. Anti-human, yeah, to deal more damage. And what do we have? Power Engage, Guardian Chase, and Guardian's Flurry. Again, melee attacks and these skills so that I can auto farm. Again, we have Little Witch 2 and some supporters that give us damage increase, which is what really matters here. And then, the main star of the show, Oboro, which is going to allow us to super easily farm this. And we have Skullface. Skullface is kind of important. If you do not have Skullface, I mean, you can do the same strategy, but you're not going to deal as much damage. Skullface is going to provide you with penetration, and that's going to accelerate how fast you farm. And it also gives HP recovery, which is good in case something goes wrong. So, other than that, we have anti-human Magatamas. The element doesn't matter. And whatever beat sticks and whatever things you can put to increase your stat. Here, I am using the basic enhancer because I don't want to use another skill that uses my time. How can I say this? The animations are gonna eat up your time, and you don't want that. You want to do specifically what this strategy is supposed to do, and that's to use mind control. So we're using Wicked Slasher and Hypnosis Seal. I was using manually Flash Step, but since I'm not piloting Oboro, I change it so that we don't use a skill that requires to use an animation. Instead, we're getting the basic enhancer. For this, I'm using Francis to enhance even further that penetration. If you don't have her, that's fine. Just give this character as much damage as possible. Like, I have Shirayuki, I have Susune. You can equip Gal Lilim. You can equip Kirara, Yukina, Stella, whatever you can equip that increases your damage is gonna be fine. So yeah, basically all of this so that we can auto farm on step 100 and go for those item drops. Uh, this strategy might work on other bosses, but for example, LWS squad, not the greatest idea. There are too many enemies in the stage, and the stage is very big. Queen Arachne, she has mobs that are going to be annoying. They are not the biggest concern, but her debuff duration reduction is something that makes this strategy not as reliable. It can be applied, but it is not as consistent. Queen Kanaloa, the issue is that you can do it, yes, but since there are mobs from the very beginning, Oboro might target them and she might stop targeting Queen Kanaloa. So preferably you do that manually. If you do that, it's fine. You could actually go with Oboro Blue with Witsu on the main. She can rely on other skills to inflict that mind control. And for Ingrid, the issue with that is that you need to rely heavily on your stats so that you're able to just erase Lina as fast as possible, and then you can rely on the uh, mind control. But for that, you actually want something like Francis, something that gives you penetration. Like the more supporters that give you penetration, the better. But we were talking about having Little Witch Sue, so that's kind of the thing. Not the easiest thing to pull on that boss. So yeah, preferably you fight on Master Taimanin. Let's do the run very quickly. Oh yeah, I almost forgot. You don't want the ultimates. You don't want the ultimates because those are gonna eat up the debuff time. Uh, they're gonna chip away on the duration of mind control, and that's kind of bad. So what you should be doing is that you deactivate the ultimates, or you are babysitting the stage, and whenever they use the ultimate, you just skip the animation so that the enemy never gets out of mind control. Like this animation, I mean that one you don't need to skip in particular because it's preferable. It's preferable to just keep it there so that you reduce the cooldown of Oboro's mind control. And there we go. Basically, the enemy is not going to get out of mind control anymore, I think. As long as my... oops, it did. Well, she's back onto mind control. As long as my partners don't use their ultimates, which they do, and then I do this. You see, that's why I don't want the ultimate. I'm gonna do another run because I'm farming items, of course. But I'm gonna do another run so that I can use remove the ultimate. And perfect. So yeah, now let's see the same run but without the ultimates. We don't want the... Also, you don't want the supporters skills because Witsu is going to inflict debuffs. It's going to inflict an attack down, and that's going to be counterproductive for the strategy. So yeah, is it worth it to farm on step 100? For hammers, yes. For Mirage Crystals, yes. Last night, while I was climbing to reach step 100, I got 2 Mirage Crystals. Now I have 50. I mean, I don't need Mirage Crystals anymore. Unless they decide to give us more ways to spend it. Maybe with the next awakenings, but it is it is good. You're gonna get drops, and you have a higher chance. So 1 out of 4 battles, you're gonna get. Well, it's not 1 out of 4 battles. It's a chance of 1 out of 4 battles. So it's not guaranteed, but it is good enough and consistent enough. And those hammers really, really matter. This is kind of a strategy or something you start to do when you are in the mid game, when you're able to farm constantly on VR. And farming on the lower steps, spending your extra BP if you already have enough arena coins is recommended, because as I mentioned, the lower steps, they don't have they have like 1 out of 5 chance to give you items, but the items are gonna be either the UR bits for your penetration magatamas or the loops, which I mean, we can use them for sure, and the crystal fragments. And the crystal fragments are going to accelerate how many characters you awaken. So those are the ones that really matter. That's the item that you actually want to get. Either UR bits if you do want the penetration magatamas, or the crystal fragments, so that we are able to, well, so that we're able to awaken our characters. So we're gonna do one more run just to finish. As you can see, I didn't pay attention to the run anymore, and I gotta admit, the first seconds after activating Obor's skills are kind of the most troublesome. Yeah. You saw the debuff icon blipped for a second. Yeah, it is an RNG strategy, so sometimes it doesn't work. But that's why we're using 2 skills that inflict mind control. Because if Oboro starts attacking, well, Taimanin starts attacking, then we can just use the second skill, which is going to inflict mind control. So yeah, things might go wrong. So keep an eye at the very beginning of the battle, and after that you're done. There. You see, now the debuff is up infinitely, and I can just auto farm this super easily. So yeah, it is like the best boss you can farm if you want the items. Another big advantage of selecting this boss over any other is that the stage is super small compared to other stages. Like, Queen Arachne has a similar size on the stage. It's a little bit bigger, but not that much. But and Queen Kanaloa too, but there's the mobs, and those are annoying. But for example, Ingrid, Worm Knight, and LW's squad have a very big stage, and since there are multiple enemies, sometimes they will follow your partners and go out of reach, and they are not debuff and they still attack. So yeah, Oboro is the best one because she doesn't have mobs at the start. She doesn't have a big stage, so there's no way to run far away from you and avoid your skills. So if you want to auto farm, go for this boss. This is probably an excellent moment to auto farm because, as I mentioned, you have the HP restoration, the 20% restoration whenever you do a BR stage. Remember to turn off that ultimate. You don't want the ultimate. I mean, if you do, you can do it, but we're relying on that mind control so that the enemy doesn't move, and I don't want to deal with any inconsistencies. So Let me know in the comments if you actually spend potions or your extra VP on farming drops. Because, yeah, in my opinion, they are worth it. Some of them. And not on all the bosses, but I often do farm my extra VP here. And I want to know if you do too. So, I'll be seeing you in the comments. And see you next time. Bye.